Hello everyone. I hope that everyone is fine. So let's start with the next part of solution lesson. Today we are going to study about the different components of a solution and different types of solution. So first thing, let's know what is solution. Now a solution is a homogeneous mixture of solid substance in liquid, generally water, having same physical properties in every part of it, which may be gradually changed by changing the relative amount of the component. It's called solution. What now here in the definition we have seen, what do I mean by changing the relative amount of its component? So now if I ask you to prepare salt solution, what you normally do is you put in salt in certain amount of water. Now for different students, preparing salt solution may be different. Like some of you may take 1 teaspoon of salt and half glass of water. Some of you may take 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 glass of water. Some of you may take 2 teaspoon of salt in 1 glass of water. So in all the cases you can see that the amount of salt and water are different. But still everyone is getting same thing, that is salt solution. So what do we understand by this? It is the amount of salt and water is not fixed in solution. And why we have used the term homogeneous here? Homogeneous means you cannot see salt and water separately. Now a solution has two components. One is called as solvent and the other one is called as solute. In the example of salt solution, your water is the solvent and your salt is the solute. So from this definition or from this example, we can understand that a liquid which allows a solid to dissolve in it as to form a solution is called solvent. Now please remember, it is not necessary that we have always a water as a solvent. We can have different liquids. Like in case of a medicine, tincture iodine, we dissolve iodine in alcohol to prepare the medicine which is used as an antiseptic. So here in case of tincture iodine, your iodine is a solute and alcohol is the solvent. Now what is a solute? A solid which allows or which dissolves in a liquid, generally water, to form a solution is called solute. Now here in the example which we referred earlier, in case of salt solution, you could have seen that we are using different amounts of salt and different amount of water. So there is a term which is used to express the amount of solute in a solvent. It is called as concentration of solution. In simple word, if somebody asks you what is concentration of solution, the amount of solute by weight present in a given weight of solvent is called concentration or concentration of solution. If the solution has more amount of solute, it is called as concentrated solution. If a solution has less amount of solute, it is called as dilute solution. Therefore you can see in the below I have defined the terms. What is dilute solution? A solution in which amount of solute is very small as compared to the amount of solvent, it is called as dilute solution. Like if I have 1 teaspoon of salt in 1 glass of water of 100 ml, like it is dilute. Now if I have 10 teaspoon of salt in 100 ml of water, it becomes concentrated. Example given in front in your book is, if 1 gram of sugar is dissolved in 100 gram of water, the sugar solutions obtained can be called as dilute sugar solution. Now concentrated solution, a solution which contains comparable amount of solute, that means high amount of solute in a given mass of solvent, is called as concentrated solution. Now let's see example. If 20 gram of sugar is dissolved in 100 gram of water, the solution so obtained can be called concentrated sugar solution. Next, some saturated. Now let's take an example. One of my favorite students has called me or invited me to your house for a cup of tea. But I, being a notorious teacher, what I do is I think to prank with you. So what I do is, once I reach your home, you offer me tea. I ask you to bring 2 teaspoons of sugar because I feel that the tea is not so sweet. So what you do is, honestly, you go to your kitchen, in a bowl, bring some sugar so that I can take sugar in my tea. I ask you to give me 2 teaspoons of sugar. You provide me the sugar. I dissolve the 2 teaspoons of sugar in my tea. Again, I take a sip of tea. After some time, I ask you to again add 2 teaspoons of sugar to my tea. You again bring the sugar to me. I start adding the sugar. The possibility may be the third or the fourth teaspoon of sugar may not dissolve in my tea, because in every solution a fixed amount of solute can be dissolved. What's the reason? We have done that in our lower class. Liquids have little intermolecular space between them, and the substance which dissolves in a liquid occupies those spaces. And once those spaces are filled, you cannot add more solute to it. Again, I am making it clear. In liquids, the substance dissolves because they have little intermolecular space between them. And once those spaces are occupied, no more solute can be added to it. So once the sugar is added to the tea, if the space in the tea is completely occupied, no more sugar will be dissolved, and that solution is called as saturated solution. In simple words, a solution which cannot dissolve more of solute at a given temperature is called saturated solution at that temperature. If we have seen the sweet makers, they prepare the sugar syrup by the same thing. What they do is they keep on adding sugar in water until unless it stops dissolving. Once it starts dissolving, they heat the mixture or the syrup so that more sugar can be added to it. Now, what is unsaturated solution? A solution which can dissolve more of solute at a given temperature is called unsaturated solution at the temperature. You must keep in mind that saturated solution at a given temperature can be changed into unsaturated solution by two ways. One is by heating it, that is supplying heat energy, and the second by is adding more solvent to it. Now if you see, there is one more term in your textbook given, that is super saturated solution. Now when I heat a saturated solution, it can add or it can absorb more amount of solute. Now after heating the saturated solution, when you are adding more solute, a stage will again come where no more solute can be added even after heating. That stage is called as super saturated solution. A solution which can hold more of solute at a given temperature than saturated solution is called super saturated solution. Now this question, that what are the factors which influences the rate of dissolution of solute in a solvent? In simple terms, it is what are the factors which affects the solubility of a substance in a solvent. The first thing is size of particles of solute. We have clearly seen in our kitchen most of the spices and objects are in the crystalline form, in small crystals, because smaller the particles or smaller the size of the particles of solute, the more rapidly it will dissolve or more easily it will dissolve in the solvent. It is because with the increase in area of contact of the molecules of the solute with a solvent, the rate of dissolution increases. Second thing is agitation. The mixer grinder in our home is used for agitation, and it means rapid mixing. When a solute is agitated or stirred in a solvent, the area of contact of the solute with the solvent increases. Hence, the rate of dissolution increases. Third is temperature. With the increase in temperature, the rate of dissolution increases. Amount of solute which dissolves in a given amount of solvent also increases. And the fourth factor is the pressure. If you increase the pressure, dissolution also increases or solubility also increases. Now, how can you find out the solubility of a solute in a solvent? So, to the given solution at room temperature, add a little amount of solute and stir. If solute dissolves in the solution, then it is an unsaturated solution. If solute does not dissolve in the solution, then it is saturated solution. So how can you find out the solubility of a solute? Now the formula to find out the solubility of a solute in a solvent, we can use solubility of solute is equal to weight of solute in grams upon weight of solvent in grams into 100. Or we can find out weight of solute in grams upon weight of solution in gram into 100. Now let's take an example to understand this. If 14.3 gram of copper sulfate dissolves in 100 gram of water at 0 degrees Celsius so as to form saturated solution of copper sulfate, then the solubility of copper sulfate is 14.3 gram per 100 gram of water at 0 degrees Celsius. So here what we have to do is we have to put the amount of solute upon amount of solvent and 100 into 100 will give you the solution. So like if W gram of solution contains W1 gram of solute, such as that solubility of the solute is capital S at a given temperature, then solubility of solute, that is capital S, is given by W1, that is weight of solute, upon W minus W1, that is weight of solution minus weight of solute, because weight of solution minus weight of solute will give you the weight of solvent into 100. Now different substance will have different solubilities at different temperature. The difference in solubility of a solute in a solvent depends upon, first one is nature of solute, second is nature of solvent used, and third one is temperature. For example, the solubility of common salt changes very slightly with rise in temperature because common salt is highly soluble in water. Some substances like slaked lime are less soluble in hot water as compared to cold water. That is, their solubility decreases with rise in temperature. In certain substances like calcium sulfate, solubility increases till 40 degrees Celsius and then starts decreasing. In certain substances like potassium chlorate and sugars, solubility increases with the rise in temperature. In certain substances like potassium nitrate, solubility increases rapidly with the rise in temperature. So here you can see the solubility of different substances is different at different temperatures and they follow a different path. You don't have to remember this part, my dear students. If you remember the formula of solubility of solute, that is more than enough for examination point of view. They are not going to ask you a particular question based on these compounds. You can just remember 2 or 3 examples of each, like solids whose solubility remains unaffected with the rise in temperature. You can remember sodium chloride, potassium chloride, or lithium chloride. Okay, or you can simply remember metallic chloride of group number 1 element. If you remember the elements like sodium, potassium, lithium, all of them belong to group number 1, and their chlorides are the salts like sodium chloride, potassium chloride, lithium chloride. At the same time, solids whose solubility decreases with rise in temperature. You have to remember at least 3 examples from this, like slaked lime, which is also known as calcium hydroxide, formula is CaOS twice. Ceric sulfate, that is Ce2SO4 twice. Sodium sulfate, that is Na2SO4.10H2O. Calcium sulfate, that is CaSO4. I would request students to learn first, third and fourth one. That is much easier for you to remember and recall. Solid where solubility increases with rise in temperature rapidly, that is potassium nitrate, sodium nitrate, copper sulfate, ammonium chloride, sugar. Now how can you determine the solubility of a solute at room temperature? Let's take the example of potassium nitrate, that is KNO3. For this you have to take a clean beaker and add about 100 centimeter cube of distilled water to it. Why we are using distilled water? Because water used in laboratory for experiment purpose should be free from impurities. Now grind some potassium nitrate crystals to fine powder and add a spoonful of them in the water contained in the beaker. Stir the solution well. If the crystals dissolve, add one more spoonful of crystals and repeat the procedure till the crystals start dissolving water. That means here we have prepared a saturated solution of potassium nitrate. Why I said saturated mixture? Because now if you add more potassium nitrate, it will not dissolve in the solution. Record the temperature of the solution by a thermometer and allow solution to stand for some time. Take a clean china dish, that is the dish which is shown in your diagram, and weigh it empty. Pour about 50 centimeter cube of clear unsaturated solution of potassium nitrate in a china dish and weigh it again. Record the weight. Now place the china dish on a sand bath as shown in figure 3.10. Heat the sand bath by Bunsen flame. Stir the solution with a glass rod. When all the water evaporates and solid residue is left, stop heating. Allow the crystals to cool to room temperature. Place the china dish in a desiccator containing anhydrous calcium chloride for a day. Now why we are keeping the component in a desiccator? Desiccator is a substance where we allow the moisture to be absorbed. And anhydrous calcium chloride here acts as a drying agent. It will absorb moistures from the crystals of potassium nitrate. So it is written, it will absorb any moisture present in the crystal. Remove the china dish along with the crystal and weigh it again. So from this what we can do is, we can take the weight of empty china dish as m gram, weight of china dish plus saturated solution m1 gram, weight of china dish plus dry crystals m2 gram, temperature of saturated solution as T degrees Celsius. Now if I want to find out the weight of saturated solution, what I have to do is m2 minus m, because m2 is weight of china dish plus saturated solution, whereas m is weight of empty china dish. At the same time, if I want to know the weight of crystals, I have to do m2 minus m, because m2 is weight of china dish plus dry crystals minus m is weight of empty china dish. So we can get the value of weight of saturated solution and weight of crystals. From this you can calculate weight of water present in saturated solution, that is m1 minus m minus m2 minus m, because m1 minus m is the weight of saturated solution, m2 minus m is the weight of crystals, and the solubility of KNO3 can be determined by weight of solute upon weight of solvent into 100, that is m2 minus m upon m1 minus m2 into 100 per 100 gram water at T degree Celsius. From this we can easily calculate the solubility of KNO3, that what amount of KNO3 will dissolve in 100 gram water. Guys, I hope that the things are clear. Practice this derivation once or twice in your notebook. In the next lecture I am going to talk about solubility and their application, then anomalous solubility of water, and then we are going to take some examples of solvent other than water. After which we are going to go ahead and conclude the chapter, and I'll be sending you the question answers of this lesson. Till then, stay blessed, stay safe at home and help your parents. Thank you and have a great day.